My name is Brian Nelson. I live near Camrose, Alberta on a small family farm. Our experience with the oil and gas companies has been relatively minimal. We have the mineral rights on part of our property, so every 5 years a representative comes around and negotiates the leasing of our mineral rights. There is no wells on our property. There are several gas wells in the immediate area, but not on our land. I'm not terribly anxious to have the oil or gas companies come on. 6 or 8 years ago was probably when we had our most direct and irritating experience with, I guess you could call it the oil and gas industry. We had a seismic company come through who was retesting the area. Again, I wasn't terribly interested in having them on my property. So the guy went away, came back a couple weeks later and said, you know, all your neighbors all around you have signed up. We're going to blast here anyway. So you might as well sign up and get some money out of it. And I thought, well, it's not like I have a lot of choice. I can take the moral high road or I can take the cash. So I took the cash. It wasn't a lot of money. It was about $5,000. That was okay. There was, quite a bit of activity, a lot of guys with quads and helicopters flying around, and I didn't particularly mind that. It wasn't until they were finished, and I went out just to check that they had done all the things that they had agreed to, which was basically fill in the seismic testing holes, repair my fences, and leave the land in exactly the same condition that they had found it in. Instead, what I found was piles of beer cans strewn through my hayland. They had cut through some perimeter barbed wire fencing in several places, done a little brushing, but then hadn't repaired the fences. I found that kind of irritating. It wasn't a disaster, but I phoned up the representative and he basically didn't care. He said, oh yeah, well, we'll just add $300 to your check. And I said, well, I don't really need the $300. I'd rather you came out and cleared things up and fenced. And he said, we've moved on to a different area. We just don't really want to bother. I'll send you the check. End of conversation. Well, I got paid pretty well to pick up some beer cans and fix my fences, but I didn't think it was a very good way to enter into a relationship with a landowner. On a more serious note, we have pretty bad water here. It's high in iron. There's a lot of sulfur dissolved in the water, sulfur dioxide. After this testing had been done in the area, I noticed that there was just more sulfur dioxide in our water. But it wasn't like I noticed it the next day after they packed up. It was several months that I started noticing through my nose that our water stunk more than ever. And I've been drinking that water 40 years or more of my life, and I think I know when a change has occurred, but I have had nothing on paper and no scientific proof. I don't know if that time I was really looking for compensation or anything. I just wanted to let him know that the water had changed, and he just didn't care. They had tested the well before they started their blasting. So I dug out those results, but I really couldn't find anything that's showing the sulfur content or the sulfur dioxide content in the water. And I phoned up the representative and he said, well, that isn't included in the test, so we have no way of knowing whether it's really worse than it was before. And I had to agree with them. I have to assume some responsibility for that, in that I was ignorant. I didn't realize what really could happen after the blasting occurred. It didn't make a huge difference in our life, except about 3 years later the well collapsed, but it was 90 years old and it was probably time to drill a new well and all those sort of things. It could have been a coincidence. I don't think it was a coincidence that there's more sulfur. I think they fractured some of the coal beds down there and let water into areas of the coal that hadn't had water before. And so there was a lot more sulfur that could have been leached out of those coal beds. I can't prove that, but that's what I am pretty convinced happened. I just had to bear the expense out of my pocket. I had to, well, we put in a filtration system first. That was $3,000, and that really didn't help. Then, when the well collapsed, it was another $15,000 to drill a new well. It wouldn't actually have mattered much if I had let them or hadn't let them blast on my place, because they were blasting all around the home quarter. And those shock waves don't stop at a property line. I probably would have had worse water whether I'd let them on my place or not. The root of the problem in my situation was basically I was helpless. I really didn't have any real choice beyond protecting myself more right at the start before any of this happened. And I had never experienced it before, I hadn't researched it, and I was basically ignorant as to what the consequences of the activity in this area could be. So, you know, if I'm passing advice along to other people, I think do a lot of research before you sign whatever document they have in front of you, and be aware that the money that they're giving you may not be such a great windfall as you think it is. If you think that it's really gonna do you in later on, the only thing you can try to do is organize with other landowners around you. And I think it's more of an issue for people who are directly impacted by these activities, but I think other landowners should support them and should support those organizations, whether they're on your land or not, because you really don't know what's down there, and they may be on your place next. This community has banded together in the past to oppose strip mining coal developments, and the companies just wear you down. You organize, you stop something, then 5 years later they've bought up some more property and it happens again. And I believe if you're going to make change, you have to organize. The power of the many is what I think is the solution. The reason that I think that it's important to really be really careful what you do with your property, and think it through, not just for today but for the long term, is that we don't really own this land. I'm not going to be here forever, my kids won't be here forever, but the land will be here forever. Anything I do affects me, my family, hopefully my future family members, my community, my neighbors, and just whether this whole piece of property will still have worth in the future, which is different than value. Worth is not money. Worth is this a good piece of land when I'm done with it, and not just good at making money. The oil and gas industry tends to come in, do something, and leave. But once those geological structures are disturbed, you're stuck with it. You can't dig it up and fix it. In my case, it was going to happen anyway. The blasting was going to do me some impact regardless, because all my neighbors had signed on, especially around the home quarter. So I figured I might as well take the money. And I don't know whether that was a good decision or a bad decision. I had $5,000, and now there's more, I believe, more sulfur in the water stream down there.